Hey, everybody, there's nothing like a good book. And today, Pastor Scott and I talk about the spiritual benefit of a great summer read. That's what's coming to you today on Valley Chat. Hey, Shepherd, welcome back to Valley Chat. Pastor John Corollis here with Pastor Scott Seidler. Today, we're talking about things that we're reading and why we read and what we can actually gain from the activity of reading. Pastor Scott, why don't you introduce us to what we're talking about today and also what gets you into a book?
Love that. Love this topic. You know, I think that there are basically two kinds of life. There are lives that go really fast, and there are lives that go really slow. My life right now, in the midst of my career with kids and now grandkid, is like a series of tasks, one after the other. And reading is something that absolutely puts on the air brakes and causes me to stop and slow down. It forces my eyes not to skim or scan, but to actually go word for word as I immerse myself, especially I love fiction, into a great story. And so I am a reading to slow my life down motivated kind of guy. You're a different kind of reader, as we've talked about the stuff you're reading, and we'll talk about those specifically in a moment. But John, talk about your motivation for reading.
Yeah. When I was young, when I was in elementary school, the motivator was getting the most points in accelerated reader and being, at the top of the class. There's always a few contenders up there. And
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever actually took home the trophy, but,
Uh-huh.
maybe I was a grade level or two ahead. So I felt like I had an advantage,
Right.
in fourth grade. It's a big deal to have a 6.2 reading level. And now it's like,
So good.
I,
So good.
I read because I know that my brain has been conditioned and rewired by non-reading types of things. Video
Right.
games, my phone screen, on-demand video, Netflix, cable TV, all these things function in a way to sort of hyperlink our brain, I think in an unhealthy way. So
Right.
reading is a chance to step back and, like you said, it's a chance to slow down, repace myself,
Yeah.
understand like what excellent thinking is supposed to sound like, what putting
Right.
together an argument in a story looks like, or even I love storytelling as well. I love it when I'm taken on a journey
Yes.
and when I'm taken on a journey to a real place.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the specifics we're reading, I'll be excited to share how that particular thing happens for me. But why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're reading
Yeah.
or have read recently?
Yeah. So, the word world building is kind of the operative word for what I'm going to share first. I am a big fantasy guy. I love Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. I love Harry Potter and the whole world that is built. We've been down to Harry Potter World at Universal Studios a couple times with the kids. So I love immersing myself in fantastical worlds that are completely escapist. So, like, I want to escape the rigmarole of my life. I want to go to a fantastical place where good, wars against evil, where characters that you can believe in go on a hero's journey. I mean, all that kind of stuff. Now, in fairness, when I tell my wife about kind of the books I'm reading, and she's like, okay, so wizards and ogres and stuff like that. She's got her own more what I'll call historical fiction, mystery, crime novels that she reads. So it's just interesting how you kind of get into it. I'm reading right now a book by, I think the author's name is either James Islington or Islington. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but The Will of the Many and the Strength of the Few are the first two books in the series. And just an incredible world building adventure with this character who is essentially being controlled by this this force of will that is somehow transacted among human beings in this particular world that he's living in. And without going into all of it, because even as I'm describing it, I'm like, wow, this is a lot. But man, I am neck deep into it. It's like, this is like 1,500, 1,600 pages worth of stuff. And
Wow.
I'm a very slow reader. So I've been at this going on like 7, 8 months right now. And my wife Renee is like, "Wow, you are committed." And I'm like, "Oh, honey, you have no idea. Let's go." So, what about you, John? What are you reading?
I do get excited to some point like share Lord of the Rings with my son and
Yep.
read to him and then the movies and everything. But right now for me, the two things I'm reading are some like theological literature, sort
Oh,
of
yes,
like
you are.
ongoing continuing ed stuff, if you
Yep.
will, and then a magazine that comes out quarterly that talks about the
Right.
sort of the third wave of the coffee industry.
The coffee
So
industry.
it's
God bless you,
both of
John.
these topics are things that you could constantly learn about and never learn everything, and that is, I think, what draws me to it. But here's an example of this coffee magazine
Yes.
that I brought in today. It's filled with interviews with baristas or coffee shop owners. There's photography. There's discussions about different cafes or cities and how they have grown and changed over the years. Here, take a look at that. It's
Oh, well,
pretty
yeah, sure,
interesting.
sure. Oh, it's got a nice texture on the cover too.
It's
Texture matters.
it
Texture.
does.
It says, uh, what's the coffee place called? The baristas who serves it, but not just a cafe. It's a what? I guess it's a cafe.
Roastery,
A roastery.
or
Oh yeah. Oh, and the pages are have a nice texture
yeah,
to them
it's
too.
it's fun. It's
Very
written
warm.
by
Very warm.
most of the authors are not American. It's a kind of a European publication.
Oh,
So I like hearing things from a
Euro
different
coffee.
perspective.
Uh huh.
It comes with a sample of coffee from some random roaster
You know,
somewhere in the world each quarter.
Uh huh.
And what I love about it is, okay, so you read about a cafe in, say, Barcelona. It takes you into the atmosphere, the feeling, the music, the layout, and it just sort of puts you right in the chair. And then my mind is like, wow, I just added this little thing to my hypothetical bucket list of, if I'm ever there,
Right.
I want to stop at this place. I want to sit in the chair and I want to like have the experience that now I've had the chance to imagine, to read about. So
Love it.
that's what I like about that. It sort of takes me somewhere. It's like kind of an escapist way as well.
I love it, and you are someone who I've come to appreciate. Just really does love world culture, and whether it be doing the mission trips that we've done with the preschool staff to Guatemala, just talking about. I mean, you've got family, in-laws that live over in New Zealand. You've been there, and whenever you go somewhere, it is always delightful to have John bring back pictures and storytelling. So I know that is a big part of your kind of DNA and appreciation for what God has made in this world.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I don't know. I'm not sure what it is about. I talked to my counselor about this. Why is it that I always imagine myself picking up and moving somewhere
Oh, yeah.
exotic, and
Right.
living life off the grid somewhere or on the side of a mountain. My family is not all on board with those imaginings. Another thing that drives me to read, though, here's the other book I brought in today.
Yes, God bless you.
Reading Matthew with Monks. It's a Catholic publication about 10th century liturgical hermeneutics in England. And is there a lot of practical crossover? No. But
What's the name of the book? Just a one more time, real slow on the name of the book, John, because it's something.
Reading Matthew with Monks, Liturgical Interpretation in Anglo-Saxon England. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot there.
You
There's
know,
a lot there.
I prize myself. I'm just going to talk directly to my camera right now and just have kind of a confessional moment. I pride myself on being a pretty smart guy. I've had a lot of education, a lot of letters, and let me simply say that there are days when John comes in with these kind of books, and I feel like a complete yutz. And I think to myself, wow, why can't I think like him and be like him? But it just goes to prove different strokes, different folks. Different
True,
folks,
true.
different strokes. And so, yeah, and then you come with some factoids for staff meetings from these books, and again, just delightful.
It makes me sound smarter, maybe, than I am.
I think you're pretty smart, yeah.
And I was hoping in this book to find like a way to read the Bible in like a very practical thing, and instead what I got was like the liturgical calendar of these monasteries in England were so intricate that they didn't really repeat for like 7 years, and also
Yeah.
the feast days would like pile up on top of each other.
Right.
And so it was more like, here's the biblical references that tie into the opening liturgical elements, and then the actual readings, and then the homilies, and then the hymns. And these are the things that they'd have been hearing at this time of year, and that's why when they read this parable or that teaching from Jesus, they would have applied it this way. And I was like, well,
Here we go.
That's great.
I want to pick up. I want to pick up on something that I think is really an insightful statement, and really kind of dwell on that for a little while. Is your phrase? I was really hoping to find this in this book, but then this happened, and I think that is part of reading. Is like we have hope for what a book is going to offer us. A few months ago, I'm walking through Target by myself. My wife is on a business trip. Sometimes I just go to Target and I walk around.
Dangerous.
I do. I mean, sue me. So anyways, I'm walking around, and there on an end cap is this Islington book, The Will of the Many. And I'm looking at it, and first of all, I like fantasy, so that's a baseline. And I'm like, wow, this is a fantasy book. It's like a big, thick book, so like I'm thinking, wow, if you're really committed to that, and they're selling it in Target, that's saying something, because Target doesn't generally sell like 500, 600, 700 page books on an end cap. So I don't read real books. I read on my Kindle because I can't hold real books and read because I get tired and fall asleep like in 2 pages. It's just the way it works. So anyways, I though looked at the cover. I read the back cover, and my hope was, oh man, this looks like a great book. And my hope was, this book, I hope, is really going to take me somewhere. It took me 50 pages into it, and I'm like, wow, this book. And the main character, someone I can believe in, ethical wrestles here and there. So I read in order to make me a better human around ethical wrestles, the intersection of good and evil, because as pastors, we kind of work in that world. As Christians, we think in terms of good and evil. And then, of course, just the plot and everything else. You just want to...
Here's a little, a little feather in your cap for being a fantasy fan. And it's going to come from a well-loved source of mine, G.K. Chesterton, who said, we need to tell our kids stories. We need to tell little boys stories about knights slaying dragons, because they're going to come across dragons in real life, and they're going to need to know what to do.
I love that.
And
now I got goosebumps. Okay.
It's pretty powerful, the story that's so important for us to be able to put ourselves in those situations. And then when it happens, because the ambiguity is going to happen in life, the questions are going to come up, the ethics are going to be hard to discern, and so being able to relate to someone that's journeyed through that before is a powerful thing.
And every culture has stories, and storytelling is, as much a part of human culture, human race, as eating and breathing. We tell stories. It can be as simple as coming home from a day at the office and saying, hey, honey, guess what happened? Or, getting off a phone call and, hey, honey, guess what my mom or my brother just told me? And you're already putting yourself in storytelling mode. So I know we talk about the biblical story, and we've talked about studying the Bible and reading the biblical stories, becoming conversant in them. Very important. Obviously, we're Christians who believe in the Bible. At the same time, there is this capacity that we grow in as we just tell everyday stories, even when our little ones. Now, you've got a 4-month-old, I've got a 4-month-old grandbaby. They are going to come and they're going to want to tell stories that as adults, we are like just dying inside slowly because the stories take forever. They don't make a lot of sense. They generally deal with, bodily functions if, get toward junior high. But that storytelling capacity and our willingness to listen to other people's stories really is a real virtue for a Christian.
And as preachers who are trying to bring people into the story of God's love for them week in and week out, I'm like, man, I need to figure out how to be a better storyteller and a better person to invite someone into that experience.
Right.
And so if I'm thinking about what were these 10th century guys doing in England, how did they understand it and interpret certain parts of the Bible? Or I'm just reading about bringing me into a cafe in Spain, or reading a story about this fringe element of the coffee industry, the emerging industry of Rwandan coffee. It's like I have no real reference point for that. I'm very unlikely to ever come into tangible contact with it. But the author made me care.
Yeah.
And they can make me care about that. How can I help people care about these things that God is doing in their lives too? So that's a huge motivator for me in reading.
And two of the books that they're on my Kindle, so I could just hold up my Kindle for you, my e-reader. I fell in love a couple years back with an author called Barbara Kingsolver. And She wrote Demon Copperhead. She wrote the Poisonwood Bible. And one of the reasons why I really have fallen in love with her books is because she really touches on spiritual issues affecting the world in which we live. Now, I don't know a whole lot about King Solver as an author or as a person, but in Demon Copperhead, it's about the Appalachian opioid crisis. In the Poisonwood Bible, it's about kind of the idealistic missionary work going on in sub-Saharan Africa in the 1950s and 60s. And while she's writing a great plot, I mean, both books are just literal page turners. Man, did I fly through them. And again, I'm a very slow reader. But I flew through these books. One of the things that kept me going was their invitation to think spiritually about things that are on the news. Like, for instance, the opioid crisis. And I think that I don't ever want to lose the thread, even when we read books of fiction by secular authors. There is something about those books. There's something for their popularity that they're being bought by hundreds and thousands of people that really does invite us to think spiritually about not the timeless truths in them, but the timeless truths that they point to and invite us to go back to Scripture to learn about. And I think that's a real critical piece for reading, and especially reading fiction.
Yeah, it goes back to the idea that before we're Christian, we're human beings, and human beings are storytellers.
Love that.
And so the more storytelling quality that we can encounter, the better we're going to understand ourselves, and the better we're going to understand the God who made us in his image.
Right.
There's a 20th century author who I'll just invite our audience to consider and to read through. She won multiple literary awards. She was kind of world renowned at the time towards the end of her career. She's beloved by some of our seminary faculty. Flannery O'Connor. She's Catholic author, but she wrote short stories. The amazing thing is you don't have to be like a good reader or a committed reader to read a short story.
Right.
It's 10 to 20 pages.
Love that.
It's like an episode in a short comedy show, and she packs it so full of this symbolic language.
Yeah.
It's like a parable where you hear Jesus tell this short story, and you want to figure out what each of those details really means, and that's the way that she writes.
Love that.
And so maybe at some point we can
put that on my list, John.
We can read that together, either you and I or Shepherd and us. But
Book club.
Book club is back. Bringing book club back.
We're bringing book club back. I think one of the pieces that you and I and Pastor Allen, really our whole staff is committed to, breakfast, lunch, or coffee. And breakfast, lunch, or coffee here at Shepherd, the opportunity to get with individuals, with couples, in a household. The invitation is, hey, I'm Pastor John, I'm Pastor Scott. Tell us a story. Tell us a story about what's happening in your life. Tell us a story about what challenges you're facing. Tell us the story about where the joy is coming from, and our valuing storytelling, especially in Scottsdale, where we've got so many older adults that come in and they've got lives that are filled with stories. I think that's one of the joys of being a pastor is I love listening to people's stories. I could listen to people just tell stories, and even if they say the same thing again and again and again, it's like on rewind. I never get tired of even listening to the same old story, because it's interesting. Human beings will never tell the same story the same way. They always put a different accent, and so I love the accents.
Yeah, just a great conversation, a great reflection for us on the gift that God has given us in storytelling, in books, in literature. And so as we walk through life together as a family of faith that connects every person in every season to the life Jesus promises, we want to be a place that is reading together, talking together. Thanks for joining us today on Valley Chat. Let us know what you're reading. Shoot us an email, leave a comment. Let's get in touch and talk about the stories that you're hearing and getting better at telling stories together. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks.